Today, we would like to talk with you about college students and depression. You will be hearing from Kayla Maurer, Tania Stanford, Kwame Patterson, and Jamel Barber. So, first, we would like to start off with what is depression? Depression is a disturbance in mood or character in varying degrees of sadness, disappointment, loneliness, hopelessness, self-doubt, and guilt. Most people tend to feel depressed at one time or another, but some people may experience these feelings more frequently or with deeper, more lasting effects. In some cases, depression can last for months or even years. The most common type of depression is what is referred to as feeling blue or being in a bad mood. Some statistics here, according to the National Institute of Mental Health, it states that an estimated 18.8 million Americans have some form of depression. The American College Health Association reported that 16% of all college students suffer from depression at some point during college. Of that 16%, 30% reported feeling so depressed that it was hard to function. Some of the symptoms of depression can vary from psychological, behavioral, somatic, or physical. An example of the physiological symptoms are depressed mood, irritability, anxiety, nervousness, reduced concentration, lack of interest or motivation, the inability to enjoy things, lack of pleasure. An example of a behavioral symptom is crying spells, interpersonal friction, confrontation, anger attacks, outbursts, avoidance of anxiety-provoking situations, reduced productivity, social withdrawal, avoidance of emotional and sexual intimacy. These are just some. And the last, somatic or physical symptoms of depression can range from fatigue, leading feelings in arms of legs, sleeping too little, or insomnia, sleeping too much, hypersomnia, decreased appetite, weight loss, increased appetite, weight gain, reduced libido, arousal difficulties. These symptoms can vary from person to person, but these are the symptoms of depression.
After reviewing the symptoms of depression, we will talk a little bit about the sources of stress that can lead to depression. One thing to look at definitely in a college setting is roommate issues. You are looking at students who are coming to college for the first time or transferring to a new university from a community college, and you are seeing people that might not have had to live with someone in the past, and you're putting them with someone they might not know, have never met before, have different backgrounds or race, religion, sex, whatever it may be, and you're putting them together and hoping that things work out. Well, sometimes they don't, and roommate issues do arise. So that's a big cause of stress, because that's where you're going at the end of the day. You are sleeping there, you're showering there, you're living in that room, which most of the time the rooms are already small, so that's just an intimate setting where people can really butt heads, and that can cause a lot of stress in someone's life. Another source of stress could be academics. That transition from high school to a four-year university or college, or even if you're a transfer student coming from like a community college to a four-year university, that jump can be a pretty steep one, and sometimes people underestimate that jump. The readings are different, the tests are different, the in-class discussions are different, the participation points are different. So that first time around, say you do horrible on a test, but you think you did well, you thought you knew the material and things like that. That could be a huge blow, and that could really set you back a couple pegs, just realizing, hey, I'm not in high school anymore, I'm not at my community college anymore, this is a university and the expectations are higher. So that could really cause a lot of stress. A couple other concerns and sources for stress are financial and career concerns. Financial being how you're going to be paying for school in general, or how you're going to be living. So paying for school through financial aid, whether it be loans, scholarships, grants, any kind of money like that. Did you apply in time? Do you have enough money, or are you going to have to come up with other money to finish out the semester or the year? Also worrying about careers in the future. Did you pick the right major? Are you questioning that? Are you 100% rooted in what you're doing? I mean, are you thinking ahead of, man, I really need to make money so I can pay off the loans that I took out? Things like that. So that can be a huge source of stress at the end of the day. Also, another stress can come from pressure from the family. You are coming from high school, or even, like I said, a community college, where a family was probably played a pretty big role in your day-to-day life. Now you talk to them, a little bit less. You don't see them usually every day, so that jump from seeing them every day or talking to them every day might become once or twice a week. And then when you do talk to them, that pressure: are you getting good grades? Are you passing your classes? Are you putting yourself in a position to be in charge of your career, in charge of your education? Are you putting yourself in those good circumstances? Putting pressure on you. Hey, you should come home. You should come see us. But then you got to also balance that school, work, social aspect of your life, and that could be a hard thing to juggle. The next thing we'll talk about is the impact on life in the social, education, work, and personal aspect. So in a social aspect, students who are depressed, they probably don't want to go out and socialize with students, and that can lead them to missing opportunities. If they're living in the residence halls, missing opportunities on their floor, meeting people on their floor, or even going out and joining organizations. They might lose that connection at the very beginning of the semester, or in their first year that others got, simply because they are depressed and they don't want to socialize. Impact on education. If students are depressed, and they might feel like they don't even want to go to class, or they don't want to put in 100% effort, if they perceive that they're already failing a class, or if they're not doing so well and they get down on themselves, it could really have a huge impact on their educational and academic success. Work. Students who are depressed might not even go to work. They might not think it's worth it. They might have other people take their shifts, different things like that. And that could prove to the bosses or whoever's in charge, he's not a hard worker, things like that, which can just snowball really fast. And the impact on your personal life, you could just feel down and on yourself, and you could feel guilty for not wanting to go out. You are depressed and you are retreating to be alone. So it's hard to deal with all that, and it's especially coming, blocking off your friends, or giving up on your education, the whole point of being in college. So it can be hard to juggle.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the common ways that college students cope with depression. Talking is a very common way that a lot of college students cope. A lot of them feel more comfortable talking with a friend, but another way is to also seek out a counselor or a mental health professional as a way to discuss some of those feelings that you may have that are associated with depression. Another way of coping is through physical activities. A lot of students have stated that working out at the gym and going for runs, or even just walks, sometimes it helps the feelings of feeling loneliness and just down. It kind of cheers the person up a little bit. Another common way is journaling. Journaling can be very healthy, and it's just a way to get your thoughts out, and in a controlled environment to where it's just really you. Some people have used their journalings in connection with working with a counselor to look at some of those thoughts. Another way of coping is through music and art. A lot of people find it very soothing to be able to express themselves musically as a way to get out some of the things that it might be harder for them to say. There are a couple of actual artists out now who actually tackle issues of suicide and depression throughout their music. art can also be very soothing. And in some instances, I have seen people cope through the use of comedy. Like, for instance, Richard Pryor used to base his comedy on a lot of the things that he was dealing with within his life. And by doing so, that was his way of going through counseling. Another way is through substance abuse. Using substances such as alcohol or marijuana or different things like that to cope, which a lot of students go to because in a lot of ways those things are easier to find, and it kind of just numbs you for that period and kind of takes your mind away from what you're dealing with during that time. Let's talk about some of the barriers of treatment. One common barrier of treatment for students is financial concerns. They feel that they don't have the financial ability to be able to pay for counseling or things of that nature. Another one is lack of time. They feel with a lot of the other things that they have going on, such as school and work and sometimes just regular life things that are going on in general, that they don't have the time to take to go seek out assistance to help them with any type of mental illness. Another big one is dealing with the stigma of mental health. A lot of people have had the experience of not being comfortable talking about mental health in general. So the last thing they want to do is to be associated with it, thinking that it would give them a negative feedback from their peers or others around them that something is actually wrong with them. Another one would be the preference of dealing with the issues on their own. A lot of people don't think that their issues are as serious and that they can just get over them. But when you're dealing with mental illness and things like depression, that's an imbalance in your brain. So it's always good to seek out some type of help and not just feel that everything is on your shoulders and you have to tackle them by yourself. Another barrier would be people are unaware of the resources around them. Like even here on our campus of EIU, many students walk past the counseling center on a regular basis but don't understand or know about the resources that are contained within that department and that they are available for all of us to be able to use as needed. And a lot of people sometimes lack the awareness of resources outside of the college community, even sometimes on a local level, and things that can help you with dealing with depression and different things of that nature, and they don't really cost anything. Another barrier to treatment is downplaying the seriousness of the situation. Many people feel that at times when they just feel down, they feel a little lonely, that they're just kind of in a rut or in a funk and that they'll come out of it. Well, when you're dealing with depression, that's not always the case, and depression can take hold for long periods of time and not just a day. We all have moments of time to where we feel down or we might feel lonely, but they normally last for a very short duration. Well, when you're dealing with depression, sometimes those feelings can last for weeks, months, and even sometimes into years.
Suggestions for students. Students should contact mental health professionals immediately if they are feeling depressed. Students should educate themselves on mental health issues and don't be afraid to ask for help. Students should recognize signs and symptoms of depression and plan each day's events, including work and sleep schedules. Students should take some time out for themselves every day. Implications for professionals. If a student is depressed, you should talk to the student in private and let the student know that they can talk to you about anything. Listen carefully and validate the student's feelings and experiences. Be supportive and express your concerns about the situation. Discuss clearly and concisely an action plan, such as having a student call the counseling center for an appointment. You can refer students to EIU's counseling center at 217-581-3413. Be willing to consider and offer flexible arrangements for the student to alleviate stress. Last but not least, ask the students if they have had thoughts of suicide. If so, do not leave the student alone. Contact the counseling center immediately, and if possible, walk the student over. What should student affairs professionals avoid? Avoid downplaying the situation. Let the student say how they feel. Avoid arguing with the student or disputing that the student is feeling depressed. Avoid providing too much information for the student to process. Don't expect the student to stop feeling depressed without intervention. Finally, don't assume that the student family knows that the student is depressed. You should contact the student's immediate family members. Student affairs professionals should educate themselves on warning signs and be knowledgeable about available resources.